Last month marked the celebration of our 12th wedding anniversary for Esther and me. Despite our decision not to have children, we found fulfillment in our respective careers. Our journey began at a business accounting seminar where our paths crossed. Esther, then an engineer at a medical device firm, and I, Jasper Nelson, a senior manager at a hospital equipment company, discovered a striking commonality. Following engaging discussions, we agreed to meet after the seminar. Conveniently, we both resided and worked within a few miles of each other in Newark, NJ. Our connection flourished beyond the conference room, blossoming into a deep relationship soon after. Both passionate about our professions, we'd also shared a mutual love for fine dining, exquisite wines, melodious tunes, culinary adventures, and exploring new destinations. As our bond strengthened through shared experiences, it became evident that we complemented each other perfectly. The moment I decided to propose remains etched in memory, set amidst an evening of indulgence at one of our cherished upscale eateries. With the assistance of the restaurant staff, I orchestrated a memorable gesture. Nestled atop a decadent slice of chocolate cake, adorned with pristine white icing, sat the engagement ring, poised upright for Esther to discover. Witnessing her radiant expression upon spotting the ring, I seized the opportunity to profess my love and commitment. Overwhelmed with joy, she accepted my proposal, and 3 months later we exchanged vows in a joyous celebration of our union. Esther's career as a process engineer often whisked her away to various sites for the installation and troubleshooting of new manufacturing equipment. It was an unconventional path for a woman, but she had paved her way into the role early on after graduating with a degree in chemical engineering. She found fascination in the mechanical aspects of her work, eagerly diving into equipment design and deployment whenever the opportunity arose. Over time, her expertise garnered widespread recognition and lucrative compensation in her field. In contrast, my professional trajectory leaned more towards the executive realm. Beginning my journey in the corporate world as an accountant with an oil company, I steadily ascended the ranks, accumulating a wealth of experience along the way. Eventually, I secured a position as the vice president of finance at a small packaging machinery firm, where I further honed my skills. After a decade of industry immersion, I transitioned into the role of chief financial officer for a prominent manufacturing enterprise. Our home, though modest in size, provided a cozy sanctuary for the two of us. Given Esther's frequent travels, we employed the assistance of a dedicated housekeeper who diligently maintained our household. Having been part of our lives for nearly 5 years, she was a cherished member of our household. A seasoned individual, juggling her responsibilities while supporting her 3 children through their educational endeavors. Her integrity, diligence, and devotion endeared her to us both. Allow me to provide a glimpse into our lives, shedding light on who we are and what we value. While our existence may seem unremarkable to some, it's far from mundane. Esther and I thrive on variety, always open to new experiences. From thrilling adventures like skydiving and bungee jumping to more serene pursuits like golfing, hiking, and camping, we've embraced a diverse array of activities. Once we embarked on a spontaneous motorcycle journey, traversing the countryside for a week. Traveling, both for leisure and business, has been a cornerstone of our relationship. Whether accompanying each other on work trips or vacationing together, we've relished every opportunity to explore new horizons. Despite our adventurous spirit, one aspect of traditional life we consciously opted out of was parenthood. Early in our marriage, we discussed the possibility of having children, but mutually decided against it. This choice brought no regrets. After 12 years, we remained deeply content in each other's company. However, our tranquility was disrupted about 6 months ago. I began to pick up on subtle shifts, those nuances of daily life we often overlook. Take our Saturdays, for instance. We cherished those leisurely mornings, relishing the chance to sleep in before emerging from bed to prepare a simple meal of sandwiches and drinks. Then, without hesitation, we'd retreat back under the covers, spending hours lounging, reading, perhaps catching snippets of television, and enjoying each other's company. Throughout our years together, I never harbored a shred of doubt about Esther or her loyalty. Despite her frequent travels for work, often alongside male colleagues, I trusted her implicitly. She maintained a consistent pattern of behavior, always reaching out at unexpected times, faithfully checking in before bedtime to share her day. Her responsiveness, punctuality, and openness were unwavering. If she promised to return home by a certain hour, she never faltered, or if delayed, she promptly provided an explanation. Her secretary served as a reliable point of contact, ensuring I could reach her even during remote assignments. There was never a moment of uncertainty. However, in recent times, a subtle change began to surface. The frequency of our communication dwindled, coinciding with an uptick in her travel commitments. While she attributed the decreased calls to tight schedules and limited spare time, I couldn't shake the feeling of being sidelined. Was I now an inconvenience in her busy life? Tension had been brewing between us, reaching a breaking point that evening. I resolved to address the issue head-on during dinner, anxious to uncover the root cause and find a resolution. Departing from work punctually, I drove home with a knot of worry tightening in my stomach. The fear of a significant problem lurking beneath the surface gnawed at me, yet I felt compelled to confront it. Arriving just as Esther pulled into the driveway, we entered the house together, both carrying the weight of unspoken concerns. Taking charge of dinner duty, I had arranged for Chinese takeout, one of her preferred cuisines, accompanied by soy sauce and salad fixings. Her pleased expression at the sight of the meal provided a fleeting moment of relief. We dined in silence, savoring the flavors, yet beneath the veneer of normalcy, an undercurrent of unease lingered. As we tiddied up together, engaging in our customary routine of shared chores, I couldn't help but reflect on the intimacy and companionship that defined our relationship. However, amidst the familiarity, a twinge of sorrow surfaced, a reminder of the connection we had seemingly begun to overlook. That lingering discomfort settled like a stone in my gut, refusing to dissipate. With our coffee in hand, we retreated to the den, settling into our customary spots. Esther on the couch, legs tucked under her, her cup resting on the coffee table, and myself in recliner, my cup perched on the nearby side table. Yet, amidst this familiar scene, I couldn't help but notice subtle changes etched upon Esther's face, fine lines of tension etching her mouth and eyes, hinting at unspoken worries. It was time to address them. Esther, there are some things I'd like to discuss. Would now be a good time? I broached the topic, my tone betraying the weight of my concerns. Esther met my gaze with surprise, devoid of anxiety yet keenly attentive. Of course, you can talk to me any time, she responded, her expression shifting to match the seriousness of my demeanor. What's on your mind? You seem rather serious. I'm troubled, and frankly, a bit fearful. I admitted, my voice laden with uncertainty. I've racked my brain trying to discern what might be bothering you, but I can't seem to pinpoint anything. A fleeting shadow of anxiety crossed Esther's features, marked by a furrowed brow and a slight downturn of her lips, swiftly replaced by a quizzical expression. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Why you think something's wrong? She countered, genuine confusion coloring her words. Then why the sudden change in our intimacy? Why the silence on our Saturdays? Why the reluctance to connect? I pressed, frustration seeping into my tone. Everything feels different now, and I don't understand why. I hadn't anticipated the flood of emotions that surged within me, but once I began speaking, there was no stemming the tide. Months of pent-up anguish and frustration spilled forth, transforming into an inferno of pain that seared through me. With each word, the intensity of my emotions grew until a solitary tear escaped, tracing a path down my cheek, a silent testament to the turmoil within. As I poured out my heart, I fixated on Esther's reaction, desperately seeking solace in her response. Yet, instead of the reassurance I craved, her face betrayed a telltale flush, a silent signal of discomfort. Unable to meet my gaze, she averted her eyes, retreating into a shell of avoidance. In that moment, a seed of dread took root within me, signaling the impending collapse of the world I had cherished. Suddenly, without warning, Esther bolted from the room, her abrupt departure leaving me stunned and bewildered. The echo of the bedroom door closing reverberated through the silence, leaving me isolated in my confusion. What had just transpired? Was this her way of evading a truth too unbearable to articulate? The weight of uncertainty bore down on me, paralyzing me with fear as I sat there, grappling with the unsettling realization that something was profoundly amiss and she was too afraid to confront it. In that moment of profound vulnerability, I found myself immobilized, uncertain of what step to take next. For what felt like an eternity, I remained rooted to my seat, grappling with the temerity to confront Esther and demand the truth. Then, a faint sound pierced the silence, the creak of the door and the unmistakable footfalls of Esther descending the stairs. As she re-entered the room and settled back onto the couch, a whirlwind of emotions churned within me, anticipation mingling with apprehension as I awaited her words. "Jasper, I owe you an apology," Esther began, her voice laced with remorse. "There's nothing sinister happening, I promise. Lately, I've been overwhelmed by the turmoil within the company. The uncertainty about my job security has been weighing heavily on me, and I've been struggling to cope. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me, and I'm sorry for causing you undue worry. Can you forgive me?" I listened to her explanation, a hint of skepticism tugging at my thoughts. While her words painted a plausible picture, they fell short of fully aligning with the observations and experiences that had fueled my suspicions. Yet, lacking concrete evidence to refute her claims, I chose to extend her the benefit of the doubt for now. With a nod of acceptance, I opted to bide my time, allowing her space to navigate her concerns, while keeping a watchful eye on the unfolding events. "Of course I forgive you," I responded with genuine relief, relieved that her explanation had dispelled my worst fears. I was terrified something was wrong with your health, or worse, that you might be having an affair, which explained the decline in our intimacy. I let my imagination run wild. I apologize for jumping to conclusions. As for your job, I have no doubt you'll find something better elsewhere, or perhaps it's time to consider a less stressful path. As I mentioned the possibility of an affair, a fleeting reaction flickered across Esther's features, a momentary widening of her eyes, a subtle paling of her complexion. In that instant, I sensed the truth, though I chose to remain silent, allowing her to continue with her explanations. Listening attentively to her discourse on job-related anxieties, I pretended to accept her words at face value, though inwardly, I knew she was deceiving me. Despite this knowledge, I resolved to afford her a chance to salvage what I still believed to be a fundamentally sound marriage. "Esther, there's something I need to express," I began, my tone grave yet tinged with hope. "If there's any discontent within our marriage, I want you to confide in me. If you're unhappy with me, please tell me. But I implore you, don't betray our trust with infidelity. I couldn't bear it. Our marriage couldn't survive such a breach of trust. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to mend our relationship, but I cannot forgive an affair." This time, there was no visible reaction from Esther when I mentioned the term affair, but she listened intently as I voiced my concerns. Yet, I could sense the exact moment when she made the decision to withhold the truth from me. Her features tightened imperceptibly, her eyes narrowing before a smile graced her lips. "You're letting your imagination run wild," she reassured me, her voice soft but firm. "I would never betray your trust, and there's nothing amiss in our life together. You're simply exhausted and feeling down, conjuring up unfounded worries. Trust in my love for you. There's no one else for me." Though I listened to her words with a smile plastered on my face, inwardly, I was resolute in my determination to uncover the truth. I allowed her to believe she had succeeded in placating me, biding my time until the moment was right. For the following 2 weeks, Esther made concerted efforts to convince me that all was well, and outwardly, our lives resumed their usual routine. Yet I remained vigilant, keenly observant for any signs of deviation from her professed commitment. It wasn't long before that sign manifested itself. A seemingly innocuous trip to the Toledo plant, portrayed as routine. While I made no mention of it, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Esther's sudden surge of affection in the days leading up to her departure only served to heighten my suspicions, solidifying my resolve to uncover the truth. On that Tuesday, I drove Esther to the airport as she prepared for her trip. Her flight was scheduled to depart, bound for Toledo and set to arrive around 4:00 p.m. She assured me she would be traveling alone and promised to call me upon her arrival. Suggesting she wait until dinner time to call, Given my 4 p.m. meeting, I bid her farewell with a kiss before watching her hurriedly make her way into the airport. Instead of lingering with her, I opted to inform her of my return to work, concealing my true intentions. Unbeknownst to Esther, I had arranged a flight departing an hour later on a different airline, destined for Toledo with an arrival time just past 5:30 p.m. Aware of the hotel where she planned to stay, I had secured a room there as well. My intentions were clear. I intended to uncover any potential secrets. However, I had concocted a feeble alibi in case my clandestine activities were discovered. A feeble attempt to explain my unexpected presence. A surprise dinner followed by intimate moments. Admittedly, it was a crude plan, born out of inexperience in matters of espionage. During the flight, I compiled a mental list of Esther's usual travel companions, adding her boss, Brian Foster, to the roster. Upon arrival, my mission would be to check the hotel's guest register for any familiar names, a cunning strategy, or so I thought. After checking in just past 6 p.m., I swiftly made my way to my room, eager to change into casual attire before heading to the lounge. My hope was to catch a glimpse of Esther or any familiar faces among her colleagues. It was a long shot, but I was determined to gather any information I could. As I descended in the elevator, my phone buzzed with Esther's call. "Hi, honey, it's me," her voice greeted me. "I've checked in at the hotel and I'm heading down to dinner now. Dining alone isn't ideal, but it beats room service. How was your meeting?" "It dragged on longer than expected," I replied, masking my own agenda. "I hate that you have to dine solo, but it's understandable. How was your flight?" "Decent. It was on time, which is always a relief," she answered. "I plan to work late at the plant tonight, so I might not call later. I don't want you to worry, but if you need me, you can always reach me on my cell. I'll have it with me." "All right. Take care and don't overwork yourself," I responded, concealing my unease. "I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Goodbye." I ended the call and settled into a comfortable seat in the lobby, strategically positioned just out of sight from the elevators. From my vantage point, I could observe the comings and goings while remaining inconspicuous. With a local newspaper in hand, I prepared for the wait. For the next 15 minutes, I scanned the lobby, growing increasingly disheartened with each passing moment. Just as I contemplated abandoning my surveillance to inquire at the front desk, a familiar figure emerged from the elevator. I instinctively slid back in my seat, concealing myself behind the newspaper while keeping a keen eye on the unfolding scene. My patience was rewarded. As Esther stepped off the elevator, Brian followed closely behind, his hand resting on her back as they walked in intimate proximity. Their destination was clear as they bypassed the lobby and entered the restaurant section. The sight of Esther's attire confirmed my suspicions. This was no ordinary business trip attire. Waiting until they were seated in a booth toward the back, I casually strolled over to the divider separating the restaurant from the lobby. Peeking through the gap, I confirmed my suspicions as I spotted them settling into their seats. So she was dining alone tonight? That was the first falsehood she had spun. I couldn't help but wonder what other lies would follow. Taking a seat in a nearby coffee shop off the lobby, I kept a watchful eye on the restaurant exit. About an hour later, I witnessed their departure, him once again with his arm around her waist, her leaning into his embrace. They strolled towards the elevator, a scene that unfolded like a dagger through my heart. As they disappeared behind the closing doors, sealed with a kiss, I knew my suspicions had been confirmed. Waiting for just over 20 agonizing minutes, I resolved to confront her. I concocted a small ruse about a doctor's appointment, a pretext to reach out to her. Dialing her cell, my heart raced as I awaited her response. Finally, on the fifth ring, she answered, sounding slightly out of breath. "Jasper, is everything all right?" "What's the matter, honey? I mentioned I'd be at the plant this evening." "Apologies for interrupting, but the doctor's office called, asking if you could reschedule your appointment for next week. Not knowing your schedule, I assured them you'd call tomorrow." "Are you still at work?" I queried, my voice strained with suppressed emotion. "Yes, thanks for letting me know. I'll handle it. I can't talk much now, but I'll reach out tomorrow." "Good night and thank you," she replied hurriedly. Seizing one last opportunity to impart the gravity of the situation, I whispered, "You're welcome, and I love you. Remember our conversation from a week ago. Please don't do anything you'll regret." "Jasper, don't worry, I love you too." "Good night," she responded, her words tinged with urgency. With a heavy heart, I bid her farewell, my plea lingering in the air as a silent prayer for our fractured relationship. She was at work, undoubtedly, working away, I'm sure. Working on Brian, most likely. So there it was, the missing piece of the puzzle. She was betraying me with her boss, and it seemed she had no intention of stopping. Whatever I had said to her earlier in the week had fallen on deaf ears. I gave her another chance tonight, but she continued to lie, just like before. I couldn't tolerate it any longer. Our marriage was finished, and I was going to end it right then and there. No more deceit. For the next few hours, I pondered my next move. I wanted to understand why she had done this to our relationship. I knew she no longer cared, but why couldn't she have been honest with me and asked for a divorce if she was no longer in love? Why did she have to disgrace me like this? What had I done to deserve such treatment? My anger towards her grew, and I finally dialed her room to confront her. After 4 unanswered rings, it dawned on me that she was likely spending the night with Brian. Frustrated, I hung up the phone and made a decision. Why bother with the why anymore? It didn't matter at this point. I grabbed a piece of the ubiquitous hotel stationery and a cheap pen adorned with the hotel's logo. With a clear intention in mind, I began to draft a letter, intending to leave it at the front desk for her. Every word was deliberate as I carefully penned my thoughts, folding the letter neatly into an envelope and marking her name on the front. By the time she laid eyes on it, I would be back home, distanced enough to let my rage simmer. Being in her presence might lead me to act impulsively, and I couldn't bear the thought of causing her harm. Without hesitation, I phoned reservations and secured a flight for the following morning. By noon, I could be back home, bracing myself for whatever lay ahead. Despite the restless night, haunted by the knowledge of my wife's betrayal just down the hall, I was up and out by 6 a.m., heading to catch my flight. As I glanced at my phone, noting the absence of any missed calls, I realized Esther hadn't even bothered to return to her room to check the message light. It was exactly what I had anticipated. My flight touched down just after 10 o'clock, and after disembarking, I made my way through the terminal. Switching my phone back on, I was greeted with a notification indicating 4 voicemail messages awaiting my attention. A small smirk crossed my lips before I simply powered off the device and returned it to my pocket. Boarding the shuttle, I located my car in the long-term parking lot and arrived home by 11:30. Despite receiving 4 more calls during the journey, I made a conscious decision to ignore them all. I wanted to approach my conversation with Esther from a place of calm and composure. After unpacking, freshening up, and fixing myself a drink, I settled into my recliner, placing my cell phone on the armrest and waiting patiently. As expected, it rang just a minute later. Flipping open the cover, I answered the call. "Jasper, is that you, Jasper? What's the meaning of this letter you left me? Why would you accuse me of being with someone else? I told you I was at the plant working last night. You knew that. What on earth did you mean by this hurtful letter?" "Esther, please, let's not continue with the lies. I asked you a straightforward question. Why couldn't you have just been honest and asked for a divorce? Why did you choose to betray me by sleeping with Brian behind my back? Why did you decide to humiliate me in this way? That's what's baffling to me. You could have pursued whatever you wanted, and I would have granted you the freedom to do so, if only you had asked." "Jasper, no. I don't want a divorce. I love you, and I want to be with you. I haven't done anything like what you're accusing me of. You have to believe me. Please, Jasper, I love you deeply. Please, please. I was at the hotel last night. I saw you and Brian heading down for dinner around 6:30 and returning to his room an hour later. You spent the entire night with him, and at 6 o'clock this morning when I called your room, you were still there. That's when I decided to catch a flight back home. I even witnessed you 2 kissing in the elevator. Then when I called you half an hour later, you claimed to be at the plant working. Don't you remember? Lying becomes quite a tangled web when you have to keep track of so many details. Oh God, Jasper, please, you have to let me explain. I'm heading to the airport now, and I'll be home before 4 o'clock. Please just wait for me. Give me a chance to clarify everything. Please, Jasper. Goodbye, Esther. There's nothing left to explain. You made your decision, and now you have to face the consequences. I'll be gone by the time you arrive. I have no desire to speak with you again, and I'll initiate divorce proceedings tomorrow. You can keep the house. I'll be packed and gone by the time you get here, so whatever's left, it's yours. I ended the call and powered off my phone. She had extinguished my love for her, and there was nothing she could do to revive it. I had no interest in hearing her explanations or seeing her face again. She didn't need to explain. I already understood. She chose to betray me because she wanted to. It was as simple as that. She could have honored the promises she made to me, or she could break them. She knew the risks and the potential consequences, yet she made her choice. I doubt she even considered the fallout. Now the choice was mine, and I had made it. Thank you for watching my video to the end. Don't forget to give me a like if you like this story and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day and see you soon.